I found out that YouTube had purged its site of all cannabis-related content. How disappointing and how upset were you when that happened?
Well, it was just shocking because I can understand at least when they are purging the site because there are people that are talking about cannabis products and consuming cannabis products can be against different rules. And that was their kind of argument. But we were a pure education company. We hadn't taken any advertising dollars. We weren't selling any products. We weren't even recommending any products. And so it's the equivalent of somebody taking down a hunting video because they don't like hunting, or somebody taking down a cooking video, or somebody taking down a makeup video, where it's educational and informational and was completely a form of pure censorship, to be quite honest with you. And so it's irritating and it's frustrating and it shows you how far we have to go. But one of the greatest benefits I had of being so early with Deepak Chopra is that I distinctly and vaguely remember when I would get literal death threats from different religious right groups telling us that yoga was spreading the devil's work, or that meditation was invoking Satan. And it reminded me that even though people have very strong reactions to things when they have strong beliefs, it doesn't mean that those beliefs will stay, because after years of work and time, every part of the equation turned out to be untrue, and now the world meditates. And so I just see these things as more bumps, inevitable speed bumps on the path to changing global consciousness. And, you get frustrated for a sec, you take a deep breath and keep going.
All right, welcome back to the final half hour of Green Rush Live. I'm Jimmy Young from Pro Cannabis Media. We're here every Friday, and a reminder that next Friday is our preview of MJ BizCon with the CEO of MJ BizCon, Chris Walsh, who was so excited to be here next week. He told me he wanted to be here this week and got a little upset. That's okay. He was on. We're all busy. And can you imagine running the biggest conference in the world, and you're about 10 days away, and you want to, and he's been on with us before. He's a great guy. And I look forward to seeing him down in Las Vegas in a couple of weeks. But we're now joined by Brian Ellis from Bressler Law. Is that correct, Brian?
Bressler, Amory, and Ross. We're a law firm in New York, New Jersey, Florida, Washington, D.C., Texas, Alabama, North Carolina. We've been a financial and insurance regulatory practice for the past nearly 40 years. So when you have these highly regulated industries,
well,
exactly.
you're in the right spot for that now. I got to tell you, and New Jersey, New York, Connecticut coming online. The news on our Weed Talk News about Pennsylvania and a Republican law enforcement guy introducing legalization in Pennsylvania.
Well,
this week.
I'm originally from Pennsylvania. I've a lot of close family members in the state. I went to Penn State. I'm very optimistic about Pennsylvania in the near future as well.
So that's interesting. So you're the second guy, actually the third guy from Penn State that I've run into over the last week. Okay. One's our pal Rocco Petrilli from the NCRMA, and sure. The other is the Jewish sauce boss, Will Edelstein. He was an interview I did this week. And now
JSB, I know. Indeed.
There you go. So tell us what's your read on what happened at Facebook this week? The whistleblower goes on 60 Minutes. The next day they shut down WhatsApp and Instagram. Coincidence? What's going on? Are they too big? Do they need to be broken up like the old, Ma Bells and all that? How do you read what happened with Facebook this past week?
Let me just say quickly, any comment or statement I make is my own personal opinion, not necessarily the firm's. What I would say is, it could be all of the above. I mean, this is a particularly ground shaking moment for Facebook. And I think that, it's hard to tell. I mean, it's just be speculation. I have no basis for any, but it's certainly what I take away from it is it was a moment, it was hours where people didn't have that sort of outlet, that place where maybe they spend most of their day, most of their business activity, a lot of what they're used to, a lot of what their life has become is now part of this Facebook platform. And I think it really gave people a chance to, it's going to be hard to remember life before Facebook, but to really sort of put Facebook in the proper context in their life, something that can come on and off, really quickly. So, it's interesting, very interesting circumstances with the whistleblower, with, a number of allegations and just generally sort of the market dominance that it's had and continues to have. So really an interesting moment for sure.
And I'm going to ask you another direct question. The cannabis community, Jonathan's gone through this. We had WeedTube on here. Green Flower had been shut down by YouTube. It seems the stigma has been out there for years and years. And now you're starting to see it again, kind of rearing its ugly head on social media. And how in the world are we going to reel this in and accept the fact that cannabis is here to stay? I mean, 44% of Americans now have access to legal use of cannabis in the United States of America. So, this isn't going away. And I always say to people, if you really are looking for a good investment in cannabis, find a really good law firm, because not only are they writing the laws, but they're going to be interpreting them, and then they're going to be challenging them. And here's a perfect example, I think, of an opportunity at some point to challenge these private businesses that are shutting down cannabis companies from using their services.
So Jimmy, listen, I heard you had 47 minutes to the start of your weekend. I know I'm the last thing between you and Friday night. So, this could be a 2-hour answer or I can try to give you a 2-minute sort of.
This is the guy who gets paid by the hour, Jimmy. Be careful.
Well,
good, very well put. I understand, Brian. That was really a loaded one, but I know as an attorney, you can handle this. Go ahead.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, a lot of it comes down to the fact that we are still in prohibition.
Right.
Simple as that. I mean, we are still in prohibition until the federal law, which the way our legal system works, you have federal law is Trump's state law. I apologize for use of that term.
Thank you. You are talking to a Massachusetts guy. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I hate that it came out of my mouth. But in any event, so here's what I recommend. There's a number of reasons. It's illegal federally, and these are private companies. They have terms of service. When you sign up for an account, you agree. When you post content, it's their content. It's not your picture anymore. That's not your, so they have a lot of control over this platform. What I recommend, what I tell a lot of our clients, I mean, look, I don't know, billions of sneakers are sold with a symbol that has nothing to do with athletics. It has nothing to do with shoes. It has nothing to do with, the Nike swoosh is what cannabis companies need to be thinking about today. This is the end of prohibition. It's not quite the start of a free and open marketplace. We're a ways away. Right. So smart cannabis companies are going to be, and I heard a lot of good advice earlier on, your brand right now is your business, is your company. And your brand isn't cannabis right now. I heard Jonathan, I believe earlier, it's your life. It's a lifestyle you're selling. It's something that is going to stick in the mind of the consumer. This is a marathon. This is a long-term play. And look, this is pro cannabis media. I love that this is here. I'll be tuning in much more frequently. I'm glad to know that you are online here. And listen, the world itself is still, somewhat, the U.S. still, the federal government, we're still at a 50-50 Senate. It's cannabis neutral. I'm encouraged to see Mitch McConnell touring dispensaries and grow facilities. I know Chuck Schumer is a proponent. There's a lot of momentum, and really what I say to folks is, you can file the lawsuits, you can pay the hourly rates, you can fight the fight, and at the end of the day, we have to advise our clients that the grounds for those types of lawsuits are you're not going to. To survive a motion to dismiss is going to be an expensive endeavor. And that money, those resources are better spent elsewhere. Look, Facebook is now in competition with, the guests you had on earlier. And, it's no longer the dominant, it's the dominant marketplace, but it's no longer the only marketplace. Mm-hmm. And just like the states, and listen, stop me anytime. I had college kids as interns this past summer, and they said, Brian, you don't ever shut up. And believe me, I don't take offense. But at the end of the day, it really is focus on the FinCEN, what were the Cole memo priorities? Focus on
Brian,
those as you're developing your scheme, your advertising.
Brian,
plan.
I'm sorry to hear you as an attorney capitulating so easily to a private company like Facebook and be bullied into submission. I'm sorry to hear you do that. Sorry, I'm just poking. I'm just poking the bear a second. So first of all, what you're saying is you're capitulating to Facebook and their capricious activity against cannabis companies, which are legal in states all across the country, for consenting adults to use the products. And you're saying tough luck because Facebook is bigger than you, so tough luck. And I understand from a business perspective, yeah. But how about from a sort of an ethical or moral perspective? As an example. We have a Facebook that has more control over their media and their media placement than any company in history. They could, if they wanted to reach you on the way into a cosmetic store and give you an ad for eye cream or something or other, they could hit you just before you walk into the mall, just before you walk into the store, they get you. That's how precise their targeting equipment or software, whatever is. It's that precise. So when they like, here's for example, their community standards say some of these items are not regulated everywhere. However, because of the borderless nature of our community, we try to enforce our policy as consistently as possible. Facebook's not a borderless community. That's a lie. That is the biggest lie ever, because yes, they operate around borders. However, they are able to border things more accurately than anyone. So why is it okay for a company that can target you, or conversely, a 17-year-old in Idaho, so he's underage and he's in an illegal state, they can geofence and age gate around him also. So why is it okay that they are targeting us like this? Why is it okay?
Well, listen, Christopher, I mean, obviously you have your opinions and your beliefs, and quite honestly, I don't, on a personal level, I don't disagree with what you're saying. What I'm saying, if I'm going to advise clients who have resources, and it's exactly a business decision. This isn't going to be a battle that is best fought in courtrooms, in state courtrooms, and federal courtrooms. This is the battle that you bring to your elected officials. This is the battle that as a community, there's a lot of strength in community.
That we fight on social media.
Well, but again, when you establish a Facebook account, you're agreeing to the terms of service, and you knowingly agree to those terms of service.
We're
and
opting
Facebook,
in. We're opting in to play in a sandbox with them. That's the whole
difference.
Right.
The difference is that cannabis is illegal. It's illegal, and whether it's legal,
federally illegal, it's legal where I am.
In the United States of America, the federal law is what counts. When you have a company that engages in interstate commerce like Facebook does, you play under the federal rules. You don't have 50 different Facebooks in all the different territories. You have one Facebook that operates interstate commerce, and that is governed by federal law. And unfortunately, that's the law that matters. So I wouldn't tell my clients to waste their money filing a federal lawsuit that, maybe they have all the money in the world and they want to fight. And I love that. As a lawyer, of course, let's go do it. Chris, if you want to do it, we'll sign up tomorrow.
Sure.
We'll get it filed. But at the end of the day, the clients have to put their money where their mouth is. And, as an attorney, as a counselor at law, when I'm sitting down with a client, we're talking about strategic plans for long-term growth to, a lot of them, eventually they want to sell their business for, the max the value of their business and sell out and buy yachts and spend the rest of their life out at sea. What I believe is, there are a lot of principles that this community needs to stand up for. Right. And I am encouraged to see it. And like you all mentioned earlier, there's competition for sure, but it is collaboration. And that's how this community moves forward. And that's how prohibition finally comes to an end. And there's a lot that we can do outside of filing lawsuits against Facebook. Now, we can fight Facebook, but there's better, more efficient, more cost-effective ways to do that.
Okay, so here's the question I want to ask Brian, since you're here and you're doing a great job, and Jonathan, I know I don't want to ignore you either. What are the parameters? How can we curate Facebook now that it's become a giant? Is there a way to reel them in, or is it going to be the end of Facebook because they got so big and they overstepped their bounds?
And listen, I invite, other, and please, I appreciate the question and the passion. This is what it's all about. So the answer to that question, I think, is if I'm a cannabis company, I'm going to open a Facebook account, and it's going to be called, something of, you're going to create a brand, and you're going to have your brand is going to have the account, and you're just going to stay away from anything related to cannabis. You're going to sell. You don't want to show up on the algorithms. You don't want to get caught. And everything, whether it's cannabis business, any type of business, there's sort of this risk tolerance that is going to be, as a business or as an individual, your center of gravity. And that's going to determine what you're comfortable with. And you may want to put out an ad where somebody's, smoking a hemp joint, and you may be comfortable enough to say, well, I can prove that's a hemp joint, and I'm going to put that ad out there, and that doesn't matter. I'm going to post that. Okay, do it. That's fine. But know that you may get just as many clicks or likes or just as much attention, with something else, whether it's an image, whether it's some kind of, and that. So I would use Facebook. I would create a business profile, and I would just, you play by the rules, and you figure out where your center of gravity is, and how well you can keep your balance. And then I just think, over time, yes, Facebook is part of it. Is, there's a lot of this, that it's this evil thing, and maybe it is, but it's an evil that it's content that is being created by the users, and I think that I don't know if it'll get broken. I don't do antitrust, litigation, but I think that there's a great argument for it. And I think it's unlike anything else that exists. It's almost like a public accommodation. It's not just a private company. It's an entity that has become a ubiquitous, you need it if you're going to be in business.
Right. We called it a utility. Jonathan, as someone, let me ask you a question. I can't boost my posts on Facebook. Every time I try, they say, no, you can't do it. You got cannabis in your name, right? So I gave up. And our focus has gone on to LinkedIn or LeafWire or the more friendly social media platforms that are out there. How many times have you tried to boost a post for a cannabis client, Jonathan, and they've said no? Or how have you been able to get around it?
We don't even go there. In fact, we find better alternatives to boosting posts are to get people in the community to shout you out, to give and use that. So there's a lot of strategy involved in this. There are ways to do it right, and you still have the risk of being taken down. But like I said, there's ways to get things back, get the page back up again, as long as it really wasn't doing anything too bad. And, Instagram is by far the #1 social spot where cannabis companies need to be. No question about it. LinkedIn is great. I'm on LinkedIn. I love it. But the consumers are, on Instagram.
Right.
That's where the audience is.
And Christopher, this, there's some blending of the two markets, but there's a B2B cannabis space and there's a B2C cannabis space. And yet the fastest growing demographic I've been told and heard, and Jonathan, tell me I'm wrong, is that 50 plus baby boomer group that's rediscovering the plant. And Brian's waving his hand going, yep, me.
Well, listen, I'm going to throw my parents under the bus here. Well, my mom, so we were in Cape Cod right before the pandemic, so August of 2019. And I stopped at my parents were with us. I stopped at a dispensary, and I, got one of those like vape cartridge. She, for the first time in her life, she hit it. She told me, she was laughing. She had, she was just laughing. I remember her just so gregarious. She's told me she had the best night's sleep that she's had in a long time. I've seen this in my own family, and I've seen it in friends' families as well. And I think it's great.
Sure. And there's going to be more and more of that. In fact, there's incredible growth in nursing homes and, people that are in their 80s and 90s trying it for the first time. I'll never forget my camp director uses tinctures. He's 95 years old. And he says, yeah, I sleep like a baby. I said, I said, you kick kids out of the camp because they were using this, but that was 1970 something. And this is 2021. I mean, at least we're starting to see some acceptance, some normalization of it, but there is no right or wrong. One of the things we came up with was timeouts. You take the privilege of posting content away from the producer. Maybe that is, it's not going to stop them from posting content, but maybe it'll get them to think more. Or actually, guys, come on, Christopher, I know you just read some of the guidelines. Brian, I'm sure you read every single word in all the guidelines, okay? Because you have to, right, on social. But most of the people that are posting content do not take the time to read the pages and pages and pages of guidelines that are on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. They're just throwing it up there and seeing what happens. I was taught actually to be a responsible journalist. I had to live over the fear of the FCC for 30 years, and I'm just amazed that now I'm starting to hear Amazon's going to start bidding on NFL games for the rights to broadcast them. And Facebook is right behind it. So they're media companies, but they don't have to listen to the FCC. I don't think that's fair. Anybody?
No,
Jonathan?
Absolutely. We make a lot of memes out of not reading those opt-in at what it could say and what you're signing yourself away for. Right. And so that's definitely part of it. Yeah, it is. You're right. And there are going to be changes. I do see exactly what you're saying in regards to the NFL games and all that. No question about it. That's wild for sure. It's the only appointment view of content that we make now, guys. I think it was 97 of the top 100 shows in television last year were NFL games. Yeah.
Sports contest.
You go to any restaurant, you're out and about, everyone's on their phone. It is.
And it's tracking and listening. Yeah. And if you put Alexa in your house, it's bugging you. And I even heard this recently listening to Drive Time Radio in Boston. They said something, and the next thing they know, they picked up on whatever the audio was on artificial intelligence, and ads are showing up for that particular product or whatever they were talking about. This is Big Brother. If we didn't all read 1984 by George Orwell when we were in school, we certainly should have. And if you haven't, you don't really have to anymore because you live it, right, Brian?
I live in it.
Well, yeah. Let me just say real quick. I mean, one thing I did want to mention earlier, and just sort of to this point is, I mean, you have to, when you engage in this marketplace, when you step foot on social media, you're playing by a whole new set of rules, and it's you have to be careful, and you have to take precautions, and you have to understand the nature of the power of what you're dealing with. I mean, one thing I would recommend to anybody is back your stuff up. If you have an account, if you're making posts, if you're, if you have business contacts that you're dealing with on Facebook, reach out to them via email, find a way to connect with them outside of the platform, and make sure you have access to your media and your content so that, again, that sliding scale of risk, if you do get shut down or there is some loss of access, that you're not completely left out in the dark. Like, I think that's key. And I think it's a world. I mean, it is a world where you're constantly watched and tracked. Use it to your advantage. Know the rules. Know your adversary's tactics better than they do, so that when when you confront it, you're prepared. And that's really what it comes down to. Every day you should be thinking about risk and how you can protect yourself.
Risk reward. There's a game called golf that's all about that. I just want to say everything comes back to sports with me. Christopher, final comments. First of all, I got to tell you, Christopher Smith, you did a great job as a co-host today. It was a real pleasure. Real pleasure.
Absolutely.
We look forward to his reports. Just so you guys.
This is wonderful. I think, look, this is what it's all about. I mean, I look, whether it's kind of about cannabis or talking about anything, people should be able to have, reasoned conversations and exchange ideas. And really, I mean, I have a lot of respect for you, gentlemen. I think this was great. And I look forward to your next, your next episode for sure.
Well, Lord knows there's a lot of shows we produce here at Pro Cannabis Media. I got to tell you that, and I'm gonna do a shout out to somebody. Okay, Dave Briggs is the most talented person. No disrespect, Chris, on our air. Okay. And that includes me. He's worked at Turner Sports, Fox, CNN. He was hired recently to be the morning guy at Newsy in Atlanta. And inside media, he's waving the flag now for cannabis. And he does a show called The Conversation on our platform. It's all his shows are all over our YouTube channel. They're on our Roku channel. On Sundays, we're going to feature a lot of his shows because he's now co-hosting with a guy named Amani Toomer, who had a pretty good career in the NFL, I just want to say. And this week he interviewed Tiki Barber. And that show is available on our YouTube. And I want to plug that show because I don't think enough people understand to listen to these guys talk about what they've gone through in their lives, how they've given years off their lives for the entertainment of me, a sports fan, to see them play on Sundays. Okay. And I have so much respect for them. And the fact that they pour their hearts out and talk about cannabis openly and their use on this show. And he's also interviewed Calvin Johnson, who's dedicated his post-NFL career to cannabis and plant medicine, and he owns a dispensary in Michigan. So I'm plugging Mr. Dave Briggs for this show. I want to thank Christopher Smith for filling in for David Rabionovitz. Brian, you are welcome here anytime. Jonathan, you were awesome. Thank you again. I support everything that you do out there. It is so challenging to be in the space that you're in. Keep going because we all really are in it together. And it's one of the reasons why I always close my podcast and my broadcast and our webcast and all this stuff with the same line. It's a whole new world of weed out there, people. Use it responsibly. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you next week.